Hello everyone. Again, we are looking at factoring trinomials, the form ax squared plus bx plus c, where a does not equal 1. So that means we have a numeric coefficient in front of that x squared. Our lead term has a number other than 1. And there were 3 steps that I talked to you guys about doing. First one, find a pair of factors of the product of a times c, meaning that I'm going to multiply the value of a times the value of c, and then I'm going to find the factors of that product, whose sum is equal to b. Then I will rewrite b as the sum of those factors of the product of a and c. And then I will factor by grouping. So, we have 3 examples, and we're going to work those. So if you would like, you can pause the video and try to work the 3 and see what you come up with, or just work the first one and see if you get it right, and then move on to the others. So I'll give you a minute or a second to pause the video. Alright, so let us begin. Well, I'm not going to go through and color code just because of time premises. So what I will simply do is just make sure I annotate single time with the colors A, B, and C. And from here I will just work through using my pencil. So this is my trinomial. I know that a does not equal 1, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to multiply a times c, which means I'm going to say 8 times 9, and that's 72. And then I need to find the factors of 72 that will add up to equal b, and b equals a negative 17. So I know the factors that I'm going to have, they both need to be negative, because they need to add up to equal a negative answer, but whenever I multiply them together, they need to equal a positive 72. So when just looking at this, I can turn around and I can write all of them out, 1 and 72, but whenever I think of 72, one of the common ones that comes to mind is this set of factors, negative 8, negative 9. 8 times 9 is 72. I make them both negative because I have to add them together. I have to say a negative 8 plus a negative 9 equals a negative 17. So I am now going to rewrite b. This was step 1. Step 2 is I'm going to rewrite b using those. So I have 8x squared minus 8x minus 9x plus 9. Step 3, factor by grouping. I can factor out an 8x on that one. That leaves me with x minus 1, and here I can factor out a negative 9, so minus 9, that leaves me with x minus 1. I factor out my x minus 1 from both of them, leaving me with 8x and a negative 9, so 8x minus 9. Again, if you had these inverted, if you had written 8x minus 9 first and then x minus 1 next, that's fine. The commutative property of multiplication. Check our work. That is 8x squared. That's a negative 9x, that's a negative 8x, so negative 17x, and a negative times a negative is a positive, so plus 9. 8x squared minus 17x plus 9. 8x squared minus 17x plus 9. There we go. Next one. Step 1. I need to multiply a and c together, so that means 2 times a negative 5 gives me a negative 10, and the sum of the factors of a negative 10 need to equal a negative 9. Okay, so it's a negative 10. This means that as I do this, I need to have opposite pairs. right? One of my factors has to be negative in order to get a negative 10. Let me put a negative there. So which set can I add together? Whoops, I wrote a 9 there. 10 and 10, negative 10. My factors of a negative 10, which can I add together, this set or this set, to get a negative 9? What's this one? 1 plus a negative 10 gives me a negative 9. So now I rewrite. Step 2. I rewrite B. So I have 2x squared minus, and then it's really arbitrary how you plug them in. Remember that. In step 3, factor by grouping. And whenever I said arbitrary and plugging them in, if I chose to write x first and then a negative 10x second, you'll still get the same answer. So in either one of these, however you wrote it, or however you have written it, sorry. So I will factor out a 2x from this. That leaves me with x minus 5. And here I simply have an x minus 5. So there's an understood 1 there. Factor out my x minus 5's, and I'm left with 2x plus 1. Check my work. That is 2x squared. That's plus x minus 10x, negative 9x. Negative times a positive is a negative. And I have the same answers. Alright, I chose this one to show you why this is the best way to do it unless you see the numbers. This method, but it can still be very difficult. So step 1, I take A and I multiply it by C, which means I say 36 times a negative 24. Okay, so 36 times 24, 44, 0, 12, 7, 864. A negative 864. Okay. And then what I need it to equal, B, is equal to a negative 5. So I have to find the factors of a negative 864. There are a lot of factors. Okay, so we're going to do some critical thinking and reasoning in what we're doing here. Is that I know that the two factors, see what I have here is these factors, it's some number times another number that's going to equal that 864, a negative 864. So one of these has to be negative. But I know these numbers both need to be close to each other. Whenever I add them together, I'm going to get a negative 5. So this one needs to be 5 units more than this one. So right off the bat, I know that, for instance, I know I don't even need to worry about writing down 1 and 864. Okay? What I need to do is find two numbers that are very close to each other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a factor tree. I'm going to take 864 and I will start factoring it. Well, and I like using perfect squares to start off with. So I know that 4 will go into 864. It's 2, 1, 6, so 216, and I know 4 will go into 216. Let's see, 5, 54 times. So what this tells me right here, if I say 4 times 54, it's going to equal 864. So what I'm trying to do is I'm going to factor another number from 54 and start seeing where I end up with. Right now I have 16 times 54. I need them to get closer together. So I'll write this over to the side. Right now I have 16 and 54. And you can test that with your calculator. You can multiply 16 times 54 and you'll get 864. So let me factor again. I'm just going to do by 2 since that's an even number. 2 will go into that. 27 times. So now I have 4 and 4 and 2. So 4 times 4 times 2 times 27 equals 864. What I have now, 4 times 4 is 16, times 2 is 32, 32 and 27. What's the difference between those two? 5. I need a negative 5, so I'm going to make my 32 negative. And that's one of the easiest ways to walk down large numbers, to do a factor tree and just start pulling out smaller numbers each time. And again, it's multiplying them all together. So I know that my two factors are this. So what I have 36x squared minus 32x plus 27x minus 24. And I will factor by grouping. So for this one, I can pull out a 4x, and that'll leave me with 9x minus 8. And here I can pull out a 3, so that'll leave me with 9x minus 8. And really, this is the main thing. If you've done your math right and you end up with both of these, you're pretty solid. So I'll factor out my 9x minus 8, leaving my 4x plus 3. So 4x plus 3. Check our work. 36x squared, 9x times 3, 27, and then a negative 32x, so that's a negative 5x minus 24. Same, so we're good. Oops, I didn't box in my other answers. And that is factoring trinomials whenever a is not equal to 1. Again, you should not have any problems that present this difficulty, but again, use a factor tree. Start breaking it down to smaller components and start looking at that product each time you break them down until you get to where you can find that difference. Alright guys, good job critically think and structure that homework, and good luck on your remaining factoring problems.